The desert was quiet. Too quiet for someone like me, Eli Carson, a half-drunk mechanic with no job, no friends, and no reason to care if tomorrow ever came. I lived in a rusted trailer parked miles off the nearest road, surrounded by sand, cacti, and broken memories. I wasn't always like this. I used to fix things. Cars, machines, even the occasional satellite dish for a few bucks and a cold beer. People used to say I was born with grease in my veins. But ever since the accident, since she died, I couldn't bring myself to care. Not about engines, not about people, not even about living. That night was like any other. I was nursing a bottle of cheap whiskey under the stars, letting the wind do its whispering, when the sky tore open. No sound, no warning, just a flash, like someone had dropped a thunderbolt straight from God's hand, and then silence again. At first I thought I imagined it. Maybe the booze had finally fried my brain. But then I saw the smoke way out near the ridge. I should have stayed put. But curiosity, or maybe boredom, got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight, my old toolkit, and hopped into my battered pickup. When I reached the crash site, I expected wreckage. Maybe a downed military drone or some experimental aircraft. What I didn't expect was that thing. Half buried in the sand was a ship, unlike anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't metal, not really. It pulsed faintly like it was alive, breathing. Its surface shimmered like oil under sunlight, even in the moonlight. And it was silent, dead silent. I should have run. I should have called someone, but something pulled me closer. I don't know if it was fate or just the hopeless mechanic in me that couldn't ignore something broken. The hatch creaked open as I touched it, and the smell hit me first, like ozone and burnt cedar. Inside, the ship was a mess of soft blue lights and humming cables. And then I saw him. He looked humanoid, tall, skin like smoke, eyes like twin galaxies spinning endlessly. He was slumped against a control panel, his body flickering, like a projection barely holding together. "You came," he said, not with his mouth, but straight into my damn head. I froze, couldn't move, couldn't think. "I need your help," he continued. "The ship. It's dying. And so am I. That should have been my cue to get the hell out. But instead, I did what I always do. I opened my toolbox. The next few hours were a blur. He showed me things. Schematics not written in any language I knew. Components that bent reality just by existing. I worked like a man possessed, not stopping for food or water. Tools in my hand, sweat pouring, my mind racing to keep up. And slowly, the ship responded. It lit up brighter, steadier. The systems stopped flickering. I was fixing it, and somehow I knew exactly what to do, like the knowledge had been placed inside me. When I was done, the alien, he called himself Acheron, stood tall again, stronger, whole. "You did more than repair my ship," he said. "You changed your path." I stared at him, confused. "What the hell does that mean?" He stepped closer. "Your kind fears death. You bury it in silence, in religion, in science. But I can show you the truth. As thanks. Show me. What comes after?" He nodded once. "Only if you're ready." I didn't know what made me say yes. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was the numbness I'd been living with since losing her. Or maybe I just didn't care what happened anymore. But I said it. I said yes. And the moment I did, the ship opened its mind, his mind to mine. What I saw next should have killed me. But instead it woke me up. I don't know how to explain it without sounding crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe that ship pumped some alien drug into my head and fried my brain like an egg. But it didn't feel like madness. It felt like the truth. The moment I said yes, Acheron touched my forehead with one long, shadowy hand. There was no light show, no dramatic flash, just silence, and then everything changed. I wasn't standing in the ship anymore. I was floating, somewhere between nothing and everything. The desert, the sky, the ship, all gone. Instead, I was surrounded by a sea of stars, but not the kind you see through a telescope. These stars were alive. They pulsed like hearts, each one whispering in a voice I could almost understand. But it wasn't just sight. I could feel things, hear memories that didn't belong to me. I saw a mother holding her dying son in a burning village, a soldier crying under a shattered moon, a man hugging his dog as the earth cracked apart beneath them. It was like I was walking through souls. "Acheron," I called out. My voice echoed weirdly like it didn't belong to me. "I'm here," came the reply, no longer in my head but all around me. "What is this?" "This," he said, "is what lies between life and what comes next. Your kind calls it the veil." I turned slowly. There he was, standing among the stars, taller and brighter than before. His form shifted with the light, never staying solid. "I don't understand. Am I dead?" "No," he said. "But you're close. You are inside a place very few living minds can reach. I brought you here to show you the truth you've been hiding from. Atasitatauna." "Why me?" He tilted his head, the stars dimming around him. "Because you were broken. Because you had nothing left to lose. That makes you the only kind of human who dares to look." The stars began to move. Not fall, move, like they were alive, drawn to a current I couldn't see. They streamed past us, flowing towards something in the distance. A light brighter than anything I've ever seen. It wasn't white. It was every color, every sound, every emotion, twisted into one pulse of unbearable beauty. "What is that?" I whispered. "That is the source," he replied. "Where all souls go, not to end, but to become." It hit me then. The people I saw, the feelings I felt, they were memories. Imprints left behind by those who had passed through. This place, it was like a river of spirits all heading towards something greater. And then, without warning, something wrong entered the space. A cold rip tore across the stars, and everything shimmered like glass ready to crack. Acheron stepped in front of me, his form stretching protectively. "They are not supposed to be here," he growled. "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, shapes began to form in the distance. Dark, crawling things that didn't walk so much as they bled into existence. They didn't look like aliens. They didn't look like anything. Just shadows with teeth and eyes that never blinked. "The forgotten," Acheron said quietly. "Souls that refused to pass on, that clung to hate, pain, vengeance. Are they human?" "Some," he said. "Some were like you. Others far worse." The air got heavier. My chest ached. My head buzzed like 1,000 bees had nested behind my eyes. "I need to get out of here," I said, panicking. "I'm not ready for this. I didn't sign up for this." "You did," Acheron said. "The moment you agreed to see." The shadows started moving faster now, toward us. "But not at Acheron, at me. They want to feed on your fear," he said. "You carry grief, guilt. You blame yourself for her death." I froze. "How do you know about her?" "You brought her with you," he said. "Even now her soul clings to yours." I felt the weight of it then, not physically but in my chest. The crushing guilt, the years of silence, of whiskey bottles and wasted nights. The shadows grew louder. I heard their whispers, like knives being sharpened inside my skull. "She died because of you. You could have saved her. You chose the bottle over the brakes." I dropped to my knees, screaming. I couldn't block it out. I couldn't breathe. But then I felt it. A hand on my shoulder, small, familiar, her hand. "Ellie?" I gasped, and suddenly the shadows stopped moving. I didn't dare look up. I was terrified that if I did, she'd vanish again. Just another illusion in this nightmare Acheron had pulled me into. But the hand stayed there, warm, solid. "Real, Eli," came her voice, gentle. The same voice I hadn't heard in 5 years. When I finally looked, there she was, Ellie, exactly as I remembered her, the soft brown curls brushing her cheeks, the little scar above her lip from when we tried to fix that damn fence, her eyes still holding that mix of kindness and mischief that once made me believe in tomorrow. She knelt in front of me, cupping my face. "You have to stop carrying me like a weight," she said. "You were never the reason I died." My throat tightened. Yes, I was. I should have been driving. I was supposed to pick you up that night. If I hadn't been drunk. "Stop," she whispered. "You've punished yourself long enough." The shadows hissed from the distance, agitated, circling like wolves denied a meal. "You're not supposed to be here," I whispered. You're gone." She smiled. "I passed on, but your guilt kept dragging a piece of me back to you. That's why you keep hearing me in your dreams. Why you never sleep right. I could feel it, all those nights I woke up screaming, reaching for her pillow, feeling like something was left unsaid. Because it was. My guilt had chained both of us. You have to let go, Eli, she said. Not just for me, for you. I don't know how, I whispered, my voice cracking. Ellie leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine. Then let me show you. Ellie leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine. Then let me show you. And just like that, the stars around us changed. They didn't spin or pulse, they bloomed. Thousands of them lighting up like fireflies across the sky, each one a soul, finally at peace, finally released. I saw her, Ellie, being pulled gently toward that same brilliant light I had seen before, the source. But she wasn't alone. She took my hand and placed it into Acheron's. He can help you finish this, she said, but you have to walk the rest without me. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. Tears fell before words did. I love you, I finally whispered. I know, she smiled, fading into the current of light. That's why I never really left. And then she was gone. No pain, just silence. A stillness in my heart I hadn't felt since the night she died. Acheron looked down at me, not with pity, but with something closer to respect. You did what many never manage, he said. You faced your guilt without being consumed by it. What were those things? I asked quietly. The forgotten? Yes, souls that refused release. They feed on regret, on shame. You were vulnerable to them, but she shielded you. Her love anchored you, even when you couldn't see it. I stood slowly, feeling a strange weightlessness, like something massive had been lifted off my chest. Then what now, I asked. Why bring me here if this was all about letting go? Acheron turned toward the darkness beyond the stars. Because this is only the beginning. You think death is the end, but it's only a door. And some doors need someone brave enough to knock. What does that mean? He extended his arm toward the far horizon, where the current of souls disappeared into the source. There are others like you, broken, lost, haunted. Some never cross over. Others become what you saw, the forgotten. If they aren't guided, they spread. You want me to guide the dead? I asked, half laughing. I fix engines, not souls. You fixed your own, he said. That makes you more qualified than most. I looked back toward where Ellie had gone. I didn't feel pain anymore, just peace. But there was still fear, still questions, and behind them something else, purpose. Okay, I said. Where do we start? Acheron smiled, the stars shifting in response, with the ones who can't stop screaming. And suddenly the veil opened again. But this time I stepped forward willingly. The veil shimmered like heat waves off asphalt, warping the space ahead of us. But unlike before, I didn't feel helpless. I didn't feel afraid. Acheron walked beside me, calm, silent, and watchful. I could tell something had shifted in him too, like he no longer saw me as a broken man, but as something more. We stepped through the veil into a house, not just any house, my old house. The one Ellie and I used to live in before the accident, before everything turned to ashes. But it wasn't right. The air was thick, like breathing through wet wool. The lights flickered overhead. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, and the pictures on the walls, photos of Ellie and me, were all cracked, the faces blurred like old memories trying to fade away. This place, I said, my voice echoing weirdly. Why are we here? Acheron didn't answer immediately. He placed his hand against the peeling wallpaper and closed his eyes. Because someone is trapped inside this memory. Someone you know. My blood ran cold. Who? Go upstairs, he said. You'll see. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed for me to turn around and leave. But I climbed the stairs anyway, each creaking step dragging a ghost of the past up with me. The bedroom door was open, barely. I pushed it. Inside was a little boy. Couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. He sat on the edge of the bed, legs swinging, staring down at something in his lap. His face was pale, eyes empty, but familiar, too familiar. Eli? He asked without looking up. My stomach dropped. It was me. Not just a random kid, me, the child version of myself, frozen in time. What the hell is this? I muttered. He's a fractured memory, Acheron explained, stepping beside me. This is the part of your soul that splintered when you first learned what death really was. I watched as the boy, my younger self, slowly raised his head. His eyes were dark, not naturally, but like the joy had been sucked out of him. They said she'd be okay, he whispered. but she wasn't. It hit me. This wasn't about Ellie. This was about my mom. She died when I was 9. Cancer, aggressive and cruel. 1 week she was in the kitchen making pancakes. The next she was in a hospice bed, fading out with tubes in her nose and my hand in hers. I never talked about it, not even to Ellie. I buried it so deep I forgot what it felt like to cry for her. But now I remembered. The hospital smell, the cold room, the way my dad never looked me in the eye afterward. He grieved in silence. I grieved in shadows. I waited for her to come back, the boy whispered. I thought if I was good, she would. You were just a kid, I said, my voice thick. But you made me wait, he replied. You locked me here. You forgot me. He wasn't angry. He was broken. And I did that. I stepped forward, kneeling in front of him. I didn't forget you, I said softly. I didn't know how to carry you. The boy blinked and his eyes filled with tears. She's not mad. No, I said. She never was. I opened my arms and he leaned in. It was like hugging a version of my own pain, my own shame. But instead of dragging me down, it lifted me. And then he was gone. No smoke, no light show, just peace. The room returned to normal. The air cleared. The photos on the wall outside became whole again. You're healing, Acheron said behind me. Piece by piece. How many more? I asked. He didn't smile. Too many. We stepped back into the veil. But this time, it wasn't a house waiting for us on the other side. It was a prison, cold, steel, echoing with the sound of a woman screaming. And I knew I didn't want to know, but I knew the next soul wasn't mine. It was someone I tried to forget. The air shifted as we crossed through the veil. No longer warm and strange like before. It was cold now, bitter, sharp like winter wind on bare skin. I could hear steel slamming, boots stomping, distant wailing. And then the screaming started. Not the kind of scream that comes from pain. The kind that comes from rage. Pure, raw, untamed fury. We stood inside what looked like a prison corridor. Dim overhead lights flickering, walls stained with old rust and darker things. Rows of locked cells stretched on both sides. And every one of them was empty, except one. The screaming came from the last cell on the left. I already knew who it was. No, I said under my breath. Not her. She's not forgotten, Acheron said calmly. But she's dangerous. I buried her. I let go. No, he said, turning his unreadable gaze to me. You escaped her. That's not the same. I didn't move. My legs refused. Acheron waited. So I swallowed the bile crawling up my throat, clenched my fists, and walked toward the last cell. Inside was a woman, pacing like a caged animal. Long black hair hung in clumps over her face, fingernails cracked and bloody from clawing at the walls. Her eyes, when she looked up, burned like coals. Her name was Rena. She was my ex. My mistake. My monster. Eli, she spat. You piece of shit. You finally crawled back, huh? My chest tightened. Her voice hadn't changed, not even in this place. It was venom disguised as silk. I'm not here to fight, I said. Oh, then why are you here? To gloat? Or maybe you finally grew a spine after all these years? I glanced at Acheron, who stood silent, unmoving, letting it play out. This was my mess to walk through. Rena and I met long before Ellie. I was young, stupid, and flattered that someone like her even noticed me. She was wild, dangerous in the way that made you think you were lucky to have her. At first she made me feel alive, then she made me feel worthless, and eventually she made me bleed. The relationship was a blur of yelling, apologies, broken plates, and gaslit nights. But when she hit me that last time, cut me with a bottle and blamed me for it, I finally left. She overdosed 3 years later. I never went to the funeral. You ruined me, she growled. You think walking away made you the good guy? You ruined yourself, I said. I was just your favorite punching bag. She lunged at the cell door, slamming into the bars. Her face twisted in fury. Liar, you needed me. You begged me to stay, remember that? I was afraid, I said. Afraid of being alone, of not being enough. She paused. That hit her. But I never deserved what you did to me, I continued. And I'm not here for your forgiveness. I'm here to forgive myself. You can't, she hissed. You carry me still every damn night. You hear my voice when you drink. You dream of me when you sleep. I did, I admitted, but not anymore. For the first time, she backed away from the bars. "Then what happens to me?" she asked, quieter now. "That's not my choice," I said, looking to Acheron. He stepped forward. "Rena has a choice. Let go of the rage, the hate, or stay." She laughed, but it wasn't real. It was cracked like glass about to give way. "I don't know who I am without it." "Then stay," Acheron said simply. "This place was built for those who fear peace." Rena's eyes darted between us. She was scared. Not of us, but of what came next. The silence. The release. The part where she didn't get to scream anymore. And maybe that's what hell really is. Not fire, not chains. Just being left alone with your own voice forever. "I'm sorry," I said, not to her, but for the part of me that ever thought I deserved her. Then we walked away. The veil closed behind us. For the part of me that ever thought I deserved her. Then we walked away. The veil closed behind us. I didn't feel lighter this time. But I felt cleaner, like a wound had been stitched instead of left open. "How many more?" I asked Acheron again. He looked at me, his gaze darker than before. "One more," he said. "But this one, you won't walk away from unchanged." The veil opened again. But this time, there was no shift in temperature, no prison, no storm of memories. Just silence. A deep, unnatural stillness. We stepped out into what looked like a child's bedroom. Faded wallpaper, a nightlight glowing in the corner, and a small twin bed neatly made. Toys were lined up on a shelf, untouched. The air smelled faintly of baby powder, and something sweeter, something sad. "Where are we?" I asked. Acheron didn't answer, and then I saw him. A little boy sat on the floor, legs crossed, hands folded in his lap. He couldn't have been more than 5. Dark hair, round cheeks, and the kind of eyes that made you stop breathing, because they weren't his. They were mine. I froze. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." The boy looked up, and something inside me cracked in two. "I never got a name," he said quietly. My knees gave out. I dropped to the floor across from him. I was just a decision. My mouth went dry. My vision blurred. I knew who he was. I knew without needing to ask. Years ago, long before Ellie, before Rena, before my trailer in the desert, I was in college. Young, scared, careless. She was a girl I barely knew. We weren't even dating. Just 2 kids who drank too much and made a mistake. She told me 2 weeks later, and I told her I couldn't do it. I told her it wasn't the right time, that we were too young, too broke. I made all the excuses, all the same lines scared men have used since time began. I didn't offer support. I didn't go to the appointment. I just disappeared. I buried it. But the soul? He didn't forget. "You weren't ready," the boy said. And maybe she wasn't either. But I was. Tears rolled down my face. I didn't know how to be a father. I was terrified. He tilted his head. "Were you scared? Or selfish?" That one cut deep. And the worst part, he wasn't being cruel. He was just being honest, like children always are. "I didn't believe in myself," I said. "And I didn't believe I deserved something good. I ran. I've been running ever since." The boy stood up and walked to me. He placed his tiny hand on mine. "I don't hate you. I broke, not from guilt, not from shame, but from relief. I think about you sometimes," I admitted. "I wondered what your laugh would have sounded like, if you would have had my stupid grin or her eyes." He nodded, eyes wide. "I waited a long time for you to come back." "I'm here now," I said. "I know it's too late, but I am." "It's not too late," he said, "because now you remember me." He leaned forward and hugged me. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was peace. Something in me settled, like a long-held breath finally released. And when I opened my eyes, he was gone. But the room wasn't empty. It was full of light, full of a warmth I didn't know existed. I turned to Acheron, unable to speak. "You have faced them all," he said softly. "The ghosts that shaped you, the wounds you buried, the soul you denied." I nodded, numb, hollow and whole at the same time. "Then you are ready for the final step," he said. I blinked. I thought that was the final step. Acheron walked toward the fading veil and looked back at me. "You've faced what lies after death. Now," he said, "you must decide if you go back or move forward." The veil shimmered once more, no longer violent or haunting, but soft now, like a curtain in the wind. Behind it I could see something shifting, something bright, not like the stars before. not like the swirling souls or broken memories. This was different, still, silent. Final Azeron turned to face me, his form more stable than ever. He no longer flickered, no longer shifted. He looked solid, like he belonged here, and maybe in a way so did I. "You've come further than most," he said. "You've seen the forgotten, the lost, the unspoken regrets that rot inside the soul. And you faced them." I didn't feel proud. I felt exhausted. "Why me?" I asked again. "There's millions of people more worthy than I am. I'd drag a broken-down, washed-up mechanic through all this." He tilted his head. "Because you were honest. You never pretended to be good. You never begged for sainthood. You accepted your flaws, and when it mattered, you chose to look inward." "That's all it takes?" I asked. "Honesty?" "No," he said. "It takes courage to be honest, and courage to accept that sometimes the damage we do to others, to ourselves, can't be undone, only faced." I looked beyond the veil. It was beautiful, but terrifying. I could feel it calling to me. "What's beyond that?" I asked. "Peace," he said simply. "Is that what happens to everyone?" He shook his head. "No, some never make it this far. Some are too afraid, too angry, too broken. Others stay behind, lost in their own regrets, until they become part of the void." I swallowed hard. "So what happens if I stay here?" "If I move forward, then you leave the physical world behind. Your soul becomes part of the source. No pain, no memory, no self, only truth." I stared at the veil. "And if I go back?" Azeron paused for the first time. "Then you return with knowledge few ever hold. You carry the weight of everything you've seen, everything you've healed. But you also carry the responsibility." I laughed bitterly. "Responsibility? To do what? Preach in the desert? Write a book no one reads? To guide others," he said. "To be the whisper in someone's darkest hour. The reason a soul doesn't choose the bottle, or the blade, or the end." I closed my eyes. I could still feel Ellie's hand, hear the boy's soft words, smell my mother's perfume in the hospital hallway, and even Rena's bitterness that still hurt in a strange, distant way. But most of all, I felt something I hadn't in years. Purpose. Not the kind you read in some self-help book or slap on a sticky note. Real purpose. The kind that digs into your bones and says, you have more to do. I looked at Azeron. "I want to go back," I said. "Not because I'm afraid of what's beyond, but because I'm not done living." He nodded. "Then take this." From within his chest, he pulled something small, a shard of pure light. No object I'd ever seen. It wasn't solid. It wasn't energy. It was truth wrapped in form. "This will stay with you," he said, "to remind you. And when your real time comes, you'll know the way back." I took it, and the moment my fingers closed around it, I was falling. Not through stars, not through space, but through myself. Memories flashed. Ellie's laugh, my dad's silent grief, the truck radio, the bottle on the table, the boy in the bedroom. And then I opened my eyes. Back in the desert, the sky was still dark. The ship was gone. My truck sat nearby, door still open. My toolbox on the ground, half empty. But I was different. I stood slowly, light-headed but steady. I looked at my hands, and deep inside I still felt the shard. A warmth, a reminder, a promise. The desert hadn't changed, but I had. The wind still blew dry sand across the cracked earth. The stars still shimmered above, like they had no idea what I'd been through. But I stood differently now, straighter, steadier, like I wasn't just waiting to die anymore. The truck started on the first try. That surprised me. It hadn't done that in years. On the drive back, I expected to feel the usual weight, that dull, useless ache that had followed me ever since Ellie died. But there was nothing. No ghost in the passenger seat. No bitter voice in my head. Just quiet. The kind that feels like a clean slate. I stopped in town the next day. People stared. I guess I looked different. Or maybe they just hadn't seen me in weeks. I went to the diner where Ellie used to work. Sat in our old booth. Ordered coffee and eggs and actually tasted them. An old friend, Tommy, a mechanic like me, came over. He squinted at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You all right, Eli?" he asked. I nodded. For the first time in years. He didn't press, just patted my shoulder and went back to his table. Maybe he knew better than to ask too many questions. I didn't tell anyone about the ship, or Acheron, or what I saw behind the veil. Some truths aren't meant for explaining. They're meant for living. But something had changed. I started fixing things again, real things. I opened the shop back up. Cars rolled in. People brought me their broken parts and expected the same half-drunk Eli who used to slap duct tape on the problem and call it good enough. But I wasn't him anymore. I listened. Not just to the engines, to the people. I heard pain in places most don't know how to express it. A nervous laugh that meant I'm barely holding on. A short fuse that meant I haven't slept in days. And when I saw it, I didn't just hand them an invoice. I told them quietly, calmly, the truth they needed. Not advice, not therapy, just something real. You're not alone. Or you're allowed to break, just don't stay broken. They'd stare, confused at first, then nod. Some cried. Most didn't, but they all left lighter. Word spread, not fast, just enough. The old man with a dead wife started coming by every Tuesday to change his oil, even when he didn't need it. A teenage girl with angry eyes started hanging around the shop after school, helping with tires, learning to wield a wrench like armor. A mother whose son had overdosed brought me a box of tools that used to be his. Said he'd want them to be used by someone who gave a damn. I gave them all time, space, no preaching. Just presence. And sometimes, when the night got too quiet and the stars looked just a little too bright, I'd step outside, sit on the hood of my truck, and feel the shard of light still burning quietly inside me. Acheron hadn't come back, but I didn't need him to. The shard of light still burning quietly inside me. Acheron hadn't come back, but I didn't need him to. I understood now. Life isn't about escaping death. It's about facing the things we bury to avoid living. Grief, regret, shame, they don't go away. But if you face them, really face them, they stop being your prison, and they become your path. So I keep walking, toward the broken, toward the forgotten, toward the ones screaming behind quiet smiles. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for the world is to come back from the dead and help someone else live.